How's life been for you recently this past year? First thing I would love to ask people is how you've been so far. So for you, how you been this year? Especially
I
during this whole
mean,
lockdown period.
I think everybody's sort of feeling the same a little bit. I have to be honest, like I feel like this year has been such a whirlwind, and I know that sounds so cliche, but it genuinely has. And I think I mean, if you had said a year ago that I would be doing certain things or producing certain things, I would have just thought, well, like that doesn't make any sense. But like here we are, and I feel like this year, even though it doesn't feel like we've done a lot, like moving about and everything, I feel like for me personally and professionally, I've done a lot of different bits,
Mm.
which means that I've had to sort of move and from one place to another. So it's been very, very busy, and it has, and I'm fortunate that to be in a position where I have been busy.
Hmm. Have you been working from home this whole time, or have you still going to the studio to work?
So I have been going into the studio. I've been going to the studio since May. Yeah. So when this well, I was going into the studio when this first lockdown was imposed, and then I was producing, but it was sort of like you were alternating at the start,
Hmm.
where they wanted everybody to have an opportunity where people could work from home and just to make sure that everybody was keeping safe. So you had this process where you were had a buddy and you were switching with them going into the studio and stuff. And at the start of the lockdown, I was actually I originally work on the Asian Network. I produced the late night chat show, but at the beginning of lockdown, I got asked to produce the One Extra Breakfast show.
Amazing.
Yeah, so it was amazing. It was a weird situation to work in,
Hmm.
but so I mean, it was just something that I just rolled with it. I mean, I never worked on One Extra before. Obviously, I come from a journalism background, so it was a bit different. Yeah, and we in the early stages, I remember that I was in the studio and the presenter was at home, and I was driving her desk and everything,
Hmm.
which felt really strange because like you're the presenter's hands, but the presenter's talking. So
Yeah.
it was a really strange process to work in. But again, I mean, how many times can you say you've done that? And then going on to actually studio produce when the presenter came back. That was fun. And we did loads of things as part of, keeping morale up. And I think in that moment, like having the radio there, it just made me realize how important it was for people.
Hmm.
And it was a position of privilege, really, to be able to do that.
Of course it was. Was that the one-off show that you done, or did you do quite a few after that as well?
So I did it for about 4 months.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
I did it for about 4 months. So from May till, yeah. So then I came back to Asia Network because we came back because my show was on pause for a bit when the chat show, because of we were late night, just making sure that everybody was keeping safe and stuff. So we were off air for that duration, or for a slight duration. So I came back in August when we went back into the studio for the first time with the late night chat show.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I came back to produce on Asian Network.
Oh, amazing. How long has the chat show been going on for now?
So the show is called Group Chat.
Mm-hmm. Which we want to get
And
into actually.
pardon?
I wanted to get into that actually eventually, group chat. How long has that been going
Yeah,
on for now?
no. It's called Group Chat,
Yeah.
and it's so technically it's been going on for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Then we rebranded. I came on to the Asian Network about a year ago.
Okay.
In well, a year and a half ago now, actually. In April 2019.
Mm.
And we sort of were in a position where we were sort of rebranding the show, so it wasn't called Group Chat when I came. We developed Group Chat with the team and the presenters when I came on board,
Mm-hmm.
and this new format. So it was called Late Night Discussions with Mabeen Azar. Obviously, we got a new presenter in as well, which meant we had to rebrand a little bit. And we're still currently going through this phase where every year we're jumping through new eras of the show, which is quite exciting because we constantly want to keep it fresh and current.
Mm-hmm. Of course. So what's the next steps for it now? Obviously, the whole year's changed everything for us, but what's the kind of next steps for the show?
So at the minute, so Group Chat, the show is basically a space for young British Asians to come on and talk about things that are important to them and issues that are important to them. One of the presenters labels it as rants, bants, and deep chats. Like that is probably the epitome of what it's about. And I think it's about creating a space, a group chat,
Mm-hmm.
technically on air, where people can just be themselves, really. So what happens is every day we discuss a selection of topics or one particular topic that we feel, or our audience sometimes choose a topic that's important to them
Mm-hmm.
and an issue that's important to them. So, for example, we talked about this week cancel culture,
Mm-hmm.
and we also talked about. I'm just trying to think because you do so many.
Yeah.
I forgot what Wednesday show was about. I can't remember now, but I'm trying to think, and I can't. Oh yeah, we talked about the hijab, the
Mm.
headscarf, and
Yeah.
people's relationship with that. So what it is essentially young people coming on and sharing, talking about an issue that's important to them. We also play lots of great music,
Mm-hmm.
which is good, and it's sort of something that can ease people into their bedtime, into their night, with some music, some chat, and just some fun as well. And sometimes it does get really deep because sometimes it does get really deep.
Mm.
We have people who express themselves and say they express themselves in a way that they can't even express themselves to their friends and family. So
Yeah.
conversations they've never had before with anybody else, they have with us. So it's a real privilege again to be able to do that.
Of course, let's get into that actually as well. 'Cause I wanted to ask you actually what kind of subjects you found, sort of, if you found any subjects quite difficult to talk about. So, and you sort of obviously mentioned hijab there from cancer culture as well. What kind of subjects have you found quite difficult to talk about, if there have been any?
I mean, there's been so much. I mean, I remember, and this is there's a couple of standout shows that the team put together, because I have a team of two assistant producers as well, and they're amazing. And I remember one of the members of the team was working on a show called Dealing with Trauma,
Mm-hmm.
and we had this lady on who a horrific story, and it was really sensitive. First time she's ever spoken to it. She got offers to go and speak about it on This Morning and other that, but she didn't want to because we enabled space where she felt that she could just be able to tell her story her way,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the whole point. And it was basically about how she was in a situation where her husband was attacking her and her family, and as a result of that, um, developed post-traumatic stress disorder and was quite emotional, and obviously that is a quite tricky situation to deal
Mm-hmm.
with. We did a show about growing up in care as well, which is obviously another standout moment, because I mean, again, these issues aren't talked about in the Asian community as openly. So when we had the contributor on, again, somebody of high social media profile in a way,
Mm-hmm.
and never spoken about it before, so first time coming on to talk about it, obviously emotions are high because you're letting everything off your chest a bit.
Mm-hmm.
We did a show about bereavement in COVID, and we
Mm-hmm.
got a guy on to talk about what it was like sitting by his dad's bedside table in the
Wow.
hospital. And again, the courage that he showed to be able to tell that story in such a raw moment, and so suddenly as well. But being able to have those conversations, and they can be tricky, but I think it's also like a real, to be in that moment, you just get really absorbed, and
Mm.
it's sort of like you feel like you're doing a service to those people because you're letting them share their story essentially.